Could you point out a few mistakes that you've seen that brands are doing right now, and how quickly can they mitigate them, and how can they actually mitigate them?
One is just what we are talking about, jumping on trends and you haven't understood the trend. So it might come back to bite you. The second is being able to professionally answer people when they've DM'd you. Like, I usually see this mistake, kindly DM us for the price. Just write the price there. There's no need for making someone to, because that's how you lose also the customer. The other thing is, if there's a crisis, make sure anyone who's inquiring about the crisis and why this is happening, answer them in a professional way. Don't, don't personalize it and attack them, because once you do that, you've started a social media fire where everyone now you're fighting against each other. So, and that affects the brand, even if they don't know who is behind the keyboard.
Hello and welcome to the Millionaire Mind. My name is Turi Faye. Now, the focus of this show is highlighting women in business, from conventional careers to unconventional businesses. But the focus of today is the digital space. And joining us, we have Ruth Mwai. Hi, Mwathi. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Turi.
So please introduce yourself and what you do.
So my name is Ruth Mwathi. I am a co-owner of Mikili Communications, which is a strategic communications firm that deals with personal branding and communications in the digital space. So we help brands and businesses create their visibility online so that they can be able to tell their stories. Yes.
Online, or rather the digital space, has really come a long way, especially when it comes to businesses. We no longer rely on physical methods to advertise our businesses or just to get our names out there. So now, how exactly do you help businesses and brands permeate the digital space?
So one of the things that we do at Mikili is be able to sit down with the different brands or businesses that need our services, that's communications and storytelling. So we help them be able to understand. First, we need to understand their brand and who they want to tap into. So once we do that, we're able to take them through a process whereby we tailor-make content, we tailor-make their storytelling angles in terms of advertising and all that, to suit their target audience that they are targeting. So we work with them through a process of understanding who they are as a client. Once we have understood who they are, we're able to create a vision for them. What's the end goal? Because at the end of the day, we just don't want to posting content without an end goal for them. So where do they want to be? Do they want to increase their brand visibility? For others, their ROI might be sales. So do they want to increase sales? If that is what they're aiming at, we tailor the specific strategy tailored to that. And that's how we help businesses and different brands curate their content and tell their stories differently.
We've already jumped the gun with talking about sales. We'll get to that. But now, how do you now come to a client and tell them, this is what I do, this is the service I provide? What proof of concept do you give them? Because it's one thing to come to a business and say, I can see where you're suffering from, I can see you need more visibility in the digital space, your brand needs to be known a little bit more. How do you convince them that the methods I'm going to use are going to make sense for your business?
So one is, we've gotten a lot of referrals from the clients that we've started with. So they refer us because of the work we have done to other clients that would need the same services. The other way that we usually do that is through emailing individuals that we have monitored. So we know the kind of clients we want. That's the first thing with Mikili. We understand the clients that we want. And then from that, we are able to look at that niche of client and see the ones that are really struggling on the digital space. So which individual brand is struggling possibly on the way they're doing their social media posting, or their storytelling isn't really reaching the target audience, or how they're managing their engagement isn't as where they'd want it to be. Then we reach out to them by sending them an email or just DMing them and being able to share our services with them. Then from there, most of the brands that we have dealt with have actually reached out to us and called us after we've sent the email to sit down with us, and we've taken them through a pitch deck on how over our services and the kind of clients that we have dealt with, and from there, that's how we start working.
Okay, good. You've mentioned Mikili. How did you start and when did you start and what was the process? Is it something you went to school professionally to do and to pursue, or did you discover a niche and you're like, you know what, I'm good at this, I can connect the dots between this and this, I can provide a service for people and actually earn money through that?
So interesting. I studied communications. That's what I did. I have a bachelor's in communication studies. So when I started out as an intern in one of the writing magazines, I had where I was put. I used to handle a lot of the writing content that would go on socials. So my problem used to come in the aspect of yes, you're putting out all this, but our CEO doesn't have brand visibility. That used to ike me a lot. And every person in the company, in like the team that we are working, they're not putting out because they would help us. You see, for a brand, when you have, let's say, like this station, if you are able to push out the content, you know, the company doesn't need to do so much because everyone is talking about what you guys are doing. So that's what used to ike me a lot. And I saw a gap. And from that, I was able to partner with someone who also would see the same gap in a different organization, and we worked together, and we created a company that would offer that services not just to businesses, but to also individuals, because we noticed the CEOs of these organizations, they don't care, and this is your brand, and you should be telling people more about the brand, how you started, why are you focusing on what you're doing, and so that's where we tailored our services for, and then we now expanded because we noticed different businesses are now coming to us seeking guidance on what needs to be done in terms of content and the digital media space. Yeah.
Awesome. And when you now come back to now the brands, how do you now engage with them? You've talked about DMs, you've talked about referrals. How do you tailor yourself or position yourself in a way where people now know you? Because it's one thing to be very good at what you do, but people do not know you. So now the proof of concept, this is Mikili, these are the clients we have worked with, this is what we do. How do you now convince the client that you're the right fit?
So first, with every client, we are able to do on our pitch deck a sample of something that they don't have in their organization. A storytelling, let's say a visual content, we will create a visual content for them to see the way we tell stories differently. That's our proof of concept. That's how we come up with how we are able to bring the client on board. So we create a deck that's different from what they've been receiving from other agencies or other organizations, and show them that we're not just here for the money, we're here to tell your stories in an authentic way, because right now in the digital space, everyone is posting, but is it authentic? So that's what we try and show the client. We sit down and we craft a message and a story visually that would enable them to be able to see, this is us. This is how it resonates with us.
And talking about authenticity and things that, you know, make sense, especially for corporations and companies and individuals. Right now, we're in a very PC space where everybody wants to come off very politically correct.
Yeah.
We also have people who are a little bit too woke, people who are offended by everything. And then you find sometimes you'll do a digital campaign. You had the very best of intentions, putting the brand out there. We also had other, you know, news stations or other companies rebranding. So now you want to put the new version of you out there. But sometimes it's a hit or a miss.
Yeah, true.
You find an advertisement is put out there, there are things on the billboards, there are things running on social media, and it's all very tone deaf. And you're wondering, who approved all of this? So now when that happens and you're involved, how do you mitigate such things?
That space is usually very tricky, to be honest, because beyond us as just the social media consultants or the communications consultant to certain things, there are key stakeholders in companies that make the decisions. You see, you would say this is how we want to go, but the company wants to go a different way. But one of the things that we are able to do at Mikili is be able to offer our services in a way that allows the client. We do a sentiment analysis. What we do is we go on the social media pages and we listen to what the clients and the customers are saying. You know, before we create anything that would go on billboard, anything that would go as an ad on Facebook, anything that would go as an ad on Instagram, on any digital space.
It has to make sense.
It has to make sense so that you're not tone deaf. Because, and again, we also advise our clients, don't just jump on a trend. Because you can jump on a trend and your organization actually isn't standing for that particular item. So before any trend is passed, we usually advise our clients, if you go that way, then that's going to be on you. But before that, we have already given them like an analysis. This is what people, the reactions, the mentions, this is how it would benefit you. If it won't benefit you, then don't jump on it. So yeah, we give them a report on that.
Over time, quite recently, we've seen the rise of influencer marketing. So does it make sense to you, or do you think it's the right move, especially for brands and a lot of companies who see the need to include people who are well known to influence their brand? And how exactly is the correct way to use influencers in brand marketing?
Where the digital space is going right now, influencer marketing is crucial, very, very crucial. The future will have to use influencer marketing. It won't be enough for just a brand to speak on their own. They need someone to support them. And the right way, I'd say the right way to go about that is being able to align yourself to an influencer that is able to speak to the niche that you're speaking to. So if you're a luxury brand, you have to look for an influencer that speaks to that. And just don't choose an influencer based on numbers. Because or how popular. Check the engagement, because you can have 1 million, but the engagement is 30 likes. Does that, the ROI there, you won't get what you want. So check on what the influencer is doing. Check on their content for the last 3 months. What have they been posting? How consistent are they with their brand? Because as much as the level they put, the effort they put in their brand is the same effort they'll put when you come on board as an organization, as the luxury brand, the different stakeholders that will come on board. That's how much effort the influencer will put. So when you're choosing, make sure you don't just check the metrics of the followers, check do they align to what we're doing. Then you can test. Now the second part is going to give them a collaboration. Just do something like one event, or give them, if it's a product, give them the product to market for you. See how that works. And then from there, now you can be able to know, is this someone I want to work with long time, or this is someone for a short contract? Yeah.
Now, the disparity when it comes to influencer marketing is always the return on investment, where sometimes the goal is never quite clear. Are you engaging an influencer for the purpose of making your brand known, for brand awareness, or are you investing in an influencer to see a return on investment? And now you're putting the burden of sales on the influencer, and at the same time, the amount you're paying them really does not make sense. So now, what really is the role of the influencer? Is it to translate into sales, or is it just to make your name, to put your name out there? Because even if you engaged me, for example, perhaps I wouldn't, make a return on sales this month. But maybe somebody knew your brand through me and will probably make the sale maybe 2 months down the line. So now how am I able to calculate that and translate that in a way that makes sense to the brand?
So as an influencer, with the influencers we've worked with, for the brand, you need to understand what you want to achieve. So if you're bringing this influencer X on board, this one is focusing on brand visibility. But this one has assured us from the track record they have, we've been able to see for every product that we've had with them, we've worked with them on collaborations, we've gotten sales as a result because someone either saw the post. So for the different influencers you're using, it's important as a brand or as an organization to understand, am I using this influencer for brand visibility? And if that's what I'm using, then don't put the pressure of sales on them. And then as an influencer, also I'd advise influencers, don't agree to do sales if that is not where you are strong at.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. And while we're still on the topic, we've seen, especially in the Kenyan space, where it's been the same rotation of the same faces. So now I'm putting you under the fire right now because you own an agency and you work with recruiting and pretty much putting brands together with influencers and connecting those dots. We've seen the same faces across different brands. You see this one influencer will be doing hair, cooking oil, and shoe polish in the same week, and there are other people who are really putting in the work, but they are not being connected with these brands because there's some sort of I need to know people, I need to know so-and-so to work with so-and-so. How are you able to maintain a fair playground in such scenarios?
For us, it's key to work with micro-influencers as well, not just major influencers that are rotational. So for us, what we do is we look at the brand that has approached us, and we are able to see, for this brand, this is the number of reach they have, or the brand visibility they have. A micro-influencer would work perfectly for this. If it is a luxury brand, for the luxury brands that we work with, we are able to see, okay, for this one, we'd use a macro-influencer. And so we reach out to a certain macro-influencer. We try and avoid that rotational aspect, because we also believe that the micro-influencers have a lot of say. You know, when they put something out, it's very easy for the common consumer person that we are trying to reach to be able to take that as word and be able to say, oh, Nani did this, because they resonate with that person and they've seen them grow, as compared to the one who has 1 million, because that one is known to, you know, people can see through these things. They can tell, oh, this one has been paid to do that. But for the micro influencers, they tend to be, especially the Kenyan ones,
organic.
they're organic, and they're not trying to, they're starting out, they're not trying to, you know, push something that they don't believe in. So also check, you need to,
has not set in, it's not mimicking
they're not
somebody
exactly
else.
exactly, they're truly authentically to themselves. So understand the brand that you're representing, then tailor an influencer that is targeted to that brand. Don't just choose anyone. Yeah.
And now I think we've covered corporations and big organizations. Now when it comes to personal, you know, brands, somebody who's a bit famous or in the public space and would like a bit of PR, because we've also seen a lot of clout and, you know, kiki going on. We see somebody creating a storyline just to release a music video. We've seen a lot of storylines on the internet just to garner some traction to their social media pages. Now, if you engage, do you engage such people? And when you work with them, how are you able to mitigate negative publicity to make sense to you?
One of the things that when we are handling individual personal brands, we try not, as I said earlier, we are very authentic. We try not to create fake news as per se, because that will come in. There's, you know, everyone says there's good PR and bad PR, and the good PR or bad PR isn't as bad as we think, but it is, because if you create that fake news, it will come to bite you at some point. So we try and create stories that are authentic to the personal brand that we are dealing with. We avoid creating that fake news stories just to create, what is it called? The reach, or, you know, people to talk about you. There are different ways right now to create stories that are compelling and can touch people's hearts. That you don't need to create the fake news around it. Yeah, because now Kenyans have become very bright. Not even just Kenyans, everyone on social media nowadays can see through something and tell you this is fake news. So we're getting out of that, and we need to step into a place where people can be captured in terms of their human interest. And when I mean human, it touches your heart when you read a story. So we need more storytellers, and that's what we are working on as Mikili, creating authentic stories, looking at the brand, being able to see what pillars does this individual, like you, what pillars do you have, and how can we create authentic stories that resonate with a Kenyan, that resonate with someone in the US, that they can resonate with you. And if they're reaching out to you as a brand, they're reaching out because they've seen a certain story that is true. And also advising the particular personal brand. Don't be shy, don't try and fake it, you know, fake it till you make it. We don't need that. You can, if you're a farmer, you have a side hustle that is farming. Let's show that side. That's a human side that people haven't seen about you. If you like going out cycling, you know, show that side. You know, sometimes we're trying to copy everyone, because this one is driving a Bugatti, I also want to drive a Bugatti, and you are maybe doing it on loan, and this one it's not. So try and create authentic stories. Yeah.
Okay. And a huge part of your job is it's beneficial. You want a beneficial thing for both you and the person you're working for, or the person or the client you've engaged. So now, how are you able to measure the work that you've done? Because it's one thing to put the product out there. It's one thing to make the brand awareness, you know, go a level higher. It's one thing to do all of this and advertise people. But now, how do you measure the work, or how do you measure your success and put it back as a report to the client?
So one of the things, if it's in the digital space, for us, we use tools such as analytics to be able to guide us. So we have Google Analytics, Facebook Analytics, and our reach. At the start, before we start working with this individual and brand, we're able to see where they are at. So this is where you're at. These are the numbers that you had. Then when we started crafting stories for you and putting you out there as a personal brand on social media and the different spaces, how much have we garnered? How much which posts are doing well? You know, those numbers. And why if it's a post that's not doing well, why isn't it doing well? Why aren't people resonating with it? Understanding the demographics that this person is reaching out to, so that when we're tailoring the report, we're not just giving someone, oh, these are the likes, these are the reach. We're giving you something that's so comprehensive, detailed, to the sense that you look and you're able to say, okay, so this is what we need to work on. These are the kind of stories that we need to build on. This is the kind of content that I need to do. If it's visual content, if it is audio visual, these are the places where I need to go in terms of if I want media interviews. You know, personal brands also need to sit down and go to be seen in different spaces. This is where they'd go, and this is not where they'd go. So that's how we measure our success. And also the other aspect, that's now in terms of the client. For the client, we also ask them, what is success? What does success look to you?
Yes.
So there are clients who are clueless, especially personal brands, who are clueless. They don't know what success means to them. So we try and walk with them and make them understand what success would mean for them. And then now just give them time to also think about where they want, what legacy and what impact they'd want to create in the world with a personal brand. Because at the end of the day, for us as Mikili, is creating or building brands that create lasting impact in the world. So if we're doing that, we just don't want to tell stories or create content or just post. You know, people think social media consultants or communication guys just post things online. But we want to create a post, or we want to create a story visually or even audio visually in a way that would create lasting impact. That 30 years down the line, someone would come back and refer to that
and
story.
Remember
yes.
the project you did.
Exactly.
Okay, and now we get to the most uncomfortable part, because talking about finances is a bit uncomfortable. It's a bit taboo, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So how do you measure your work, and how do you make it financially sensible to you? What figures do you quote? And when you're quoting these figures, especially to the client or to an individual brand, when you're coming up with this client, what do you factor in? Do you factor in the time you've put into the project, or do you factor in your expertise? Because it's one thing, I could do whatever the client wants me to do in 2 hours, but how am I going to tell them that this amount of money actually makes sense? How do you ask for money in a way that makes sense to you?
One thing, we're experts. So we've spent time. The people working at Mikili or any social media consultant out there has spent hours and time to craft and hone their skill. So that is one, that we quote our clients on the aspect that we are experts in the field, and also the aspect that we are spending hours on building this brand, the number of hours we're going to spend on building the brand, and also the success. Have we reached out? If it's 4 points that we needed to reach out to you in the span of time that we have handled your brand, can you look at this and see that we have met the 5, the 6, the 7 that you needed us to meet? And if you have done that, that's how we quote clients and give them a figure. And also another thing is that before even we reach out to that client, we already understand, and we've done our research, as I was telling you at the start, to see, is this a client that would be able to get our services? Because you don't want to just reach out to anyone, and when you start telling them, this is the work we've invested, this is what we've done, and they're telling you, I can't pay you that money. And we know Kenyans, when it comes to especially social media, if you ask any social media person out there, someone wants to underquote your worth. But because if you understand your worth and you understand the time that you're putting in, you won't underquote yourself.
True.
And they'll also be able to see from the results that you're giving them why you're spending that amount of money. So we just don't reach out to anyone. We reach out to the clients that we see that would fit the kind of brand that we are as Mikili, and even where we want to take them, because we have the end in mind. It's not just posting, it's not just doing digital for the sake of doing digital. It is doing digital with a different shift, authenticity, because that's, remember, with everything that's coming up, right now with AI and all those things, there's a human element that is missing. And for us as Mikili, we need to be able to create stories that human element is not lost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of Mikili, it's time to put you guys under fire. How would you describe how your brand is and where your brand is at right now? Because it's one thing to provide expertise services for somebody else. It's one thing to approach a brand and say, this is what we do, but they want to see the proof of concept. You know, I can't tell people, I teach people how to drive cars, but I don't know how to drive a car. So how does Mikili as a brand look like right now?
So for Mikili, we have built a website. We have a website that tells on what we do. We have a portfolio which we have made available to the different clients that reach out to us of the kind of people that we have worked with. So that's how our brand is. At this particular moment, we are continuously, because things are evolving, we are also evolving with the times. So if it's digital presence in terms of our social pages, we ensure that we are at the top notch of ensuring that if someone comes to the pages, they can see that these people are practicing what they're preaching. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you keep up with the trends that are coming up every now and then? There's always a new trend coming up.
Yeah, true.
There are old trends that are coming back to life. It's a whole cycle. So now how do you keep up with all of that and make sure that the clients you're engaging are, you know, fitting in the things that are in the current topics? It doesn't look out of place. It doesn't make sense for you to do a trend that was popping in 2010 and in 2023.
So one of the ways we do that is being able to attend webinars, like this Social Media Week globally. So attend such webinars and forums for us to be able to learn what is happening in the world. And also not just fixating ourselves on Kenya alone, we look at what the global brands are doing. So monitoring brands of where we'd want to be as Mikili, looking at those brands and seeing how do they tell their stories differently. How can we be able to also tell the stories, something like that, but with an African aspect, because we are in Kenya and we need to bring that African story in a way that resonates to the audience that is here. Being able to attend the webinars, attend conferences, read up on industry news and what is happening, follow key influencers in those spaces of digital and communications and what are they saying. And also just being able as an individual and as professionals in the space, being able to, after you've read, just being able to see, is this true? Is this, you know, can this apply to our clients or not? And taking in what is right and what we don't feel like resonates with us, we just put it on the side. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for engaging us in this conversation.
Thank you.
It has been very eye-opening. But as we wind up, where do you see Mikili in 5 years? It's usually a sort of difficult questions because we can't really predict what happens in the future. But where do you see yourself as an agency, as a brand in 5 years?
We see ourselves as the ones telling stories of key influential leaders in this country and in Africa, like telling the stories of those key influencers, the CEOs. We will be at the forefront of helping shape that content and the brands in Africa. So that's where we see ourselves in 5 years from now. Okay,
and very quickly, could you point out a few mistakes that you've seen that brands are doing right now, and how quickly can they mitigate them, and how can they actually mitigate them?
One is just what we are talking about, jumping on trends and you haven't understood the trend. So it might come back to bite you. The second is being able to professionally answer people when they've DM'd you. Like I usually see this mistake, kindly DM us for the price. Just write the price there. There's no need for making someone to, because that's how you lose also the customer. The other thing is, if there's a crisis, make sure anyone who's inquiring about the crisis and why this is happening, answer them in a professional way. Don't, you know, don't personalize it and attack them, because once you do that, you've started a social media fire where everyone now you're fighting against each other. So, and that affects the brand, even if they don't know who is behind the keyboard. So those are some of the mistakes I've seen, and brands can change on that.
And work on that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for having this engaging conversation with us. As always, if you want to be a part of the conversation, the number is 0770729366. We're also on social media at Ibru TV KE on Facebook and Ibru TV Kenya across all other social media platforms. Where can people find you on socials?
So guys can find us on Instagram, Mikili Arts Limited, and they can also find our website, www.mikili.co.ke for more, and they can call us on 0757 754 990.
Okay, that was us for this week. We'll see you next week.